The Auburn Tigers did it. They have hired Hugh Freeze, the former Liberty coach. This is a special edition of Locked On Auburn, a live edition of Locked On Auburn. And joining me, Lindsey Crosby, Locked On Auburn regular, writer at auburndaily.com. We're telling everybody this is going to happen in Locked On Auburn Discord. And I guess the writing on the wall, the writing was on the wall for a while. I guess ever since Lane Kiffin kind of stepped away from all of this, and this is where we are. Hugh Freeze is Auburn's next head football coach.
Yeah, and it's we talked about this just less than 24 hours ago about Auburn had a self-imposed 72-hour deadline after the Iron Bowl to kind of have somebody in place. We thought this was going to happen last week. There was rumblings on Friday and Saturday. Didn't happen. It's official this afternoon. As sources report, we're still waiting on official word from the university. But very interested in a couple things. One, I'm curious to see what the contract is, but very interested in see the coordinator hires. This is something where I don't know who all is going to come with Hugh Freeze from Liberty, who is waiting for a bowl game. Like they're bowl eligible. But obviously he's going to go ahead and come to Auburn. I'm curious to see who he brings on his staff with him.
Yeah, I read a few places and talked to a few people I trust that his bringing members of Liberty with him wasn't a big part of what Auburn's next version of their staff will be, which is probably good, right? I think a lot of these hires, because I think Hugh Freeze's scheme is good. You want to get guys that can recruit, right? That is something that Auburn is behind on in this arms race that is acquiring talent throughout the SEC. You need to now build out a staff where you can do a lot of that. Will Muschamp was heavily rumored to be the DC when Lane Kiffin was the leading favorite. I don't think he's in play anymore. Charles Kelly's a big name that's not going away. I think that'll be interesting. You got to think with this hire, right? Because I think with Hugh Freeze, unlike all the other rumored names that range from Lane Kiffin to Dabo Swinney to Dan Lanning, Auburn had more power in the negotiations with Hugh Freeze than anyone else. And so what does that allow you to do, Lindsey? I think it allows you to say, hey, Auburn wants you to keep Caddy around and Zach Etheridge around. I asked about Ike Hilliard. I said probably not. We'll see. We'll definitely see about that. But I think those two former Auburn players will stay on staff, which will help win over a lot of the people possibly that are anti Hugh Freeze and all of this.
Yeah, and it's a situation where you're getting to the point where there wasn't a ton of alternatives. There wasn't a ton of other guys still out there. We asked the question on today's show, what is taking so long? Why are all of these other schools finding their coaches and Auburn was not?
Yeah.
Part of it, like you said, that power dynamic allows Auburn to kind of make sure you can take care of the guys that need to be taken care of, kind of like Williams. I did see some stuff about he specifically was asked about the job and said he was not interested in being the head coach. So it's good to know he'll have a role on staff and seeing who comes in, who fills some of these roles is going to be rather interesting.
Yep. All right, let's bring in Daryl Dapprich, Locked On Auburn regular. Daryl, your immediate reaction to all of this. You haven't heard a whole lot of what me and Lindsey have said, so this will be a fresh opinion. Your immediate thoughts on the hiring of Hugh Freeze to be Auburn's next head football coach.
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm thrilled to be on with both of you. This is kind of a neat little setup. I'm really glad that we could do this. This means a lot. But I think that the last 48 hours, I kind of resigned myself and got used to and warmed up to the fact that it was going to be Hugh Freeze. And let me just say this. I think it's all about timing and when things happen. If you would have come to me in February and said Auburn was considering hiring Hugh Freeze, I would have been over the moon about it at that point. I would have been very on board, very excited. The Lane Kiffin cloud skewed that a little bit because getting him or feeling like Auburn had him locked up kind of took a little bit of the luster off of a Hugh Freeze hire, which I thought would have been exciting. It's because it went to you went to the more attractive prom date, right? You like this girl, you've liked her all year. You ask her to go to prom, and then somebody else comes along that's, the best choice in school. It looks a little different. So I think the Lane Kiffin factor made that a little bit less, made the Hugh Freeze hiring a little less desirable than it would have been just fresh right out of the gate from the start.
I think that's a good point. And I think part of the delay, I think a lot of people wanted it to happen on Sunday. Obviously that didn't happen, Daryl and Lindsay. But I think some of this delay was, I really think Auburn thought they were going to get Lane Kiffin. And as I've talked to more folks today, guys, we kind of alluded to this in this morning's show, Lindsay, but I think a deal was in place between the two parties, between Auburn and Lane Kiffin. And it sounded like Lane Kiffin wanted the majority of his deal guaranteed, and he wanted a clause where if he left to go to Alabama or another school, that he would still get that money, which of course, all of a sudden, Cohen's like, absolutely not. You're not going to do that. And so Cohen made the right decision there, and he's getting hit on by a lot of folks. One, because of the timing of the hire and how long it took, which in retrospect really wasn't that long. I think we're all just kind of antsy and eager, but there's a lot of different opinions on this. Let's get another opinion in here. Auburn message board legend Charlie 5 joining us.
Is this the 92 Olympic team right here, basketball team? I'm just wondering if this is
finally all together.
Quad box.
I'm going to start calling you Chuck Daly because you just put the dream team together, my friend. Let's go.
Yeah, is this the Avengers? I don't know. Charlie 5, your reaction. Hugh Freeze is Auburn's next head football coach. Hit me with your thoughts.
So I've been pretty a huge Hugh fan for a long time. I've made no apologies about it. I think he's a phenomenal football coach. If you look at where programs were when he took over, he has yet to fail. He's taken every single program that he's been at from where they were to the highest levels they've ever been, or adequate to or equal to the highest levels that they've ever been. When you look at Arkansas State, they had back-to-back 4-win seasons. He wins 10 wins the conference his very first year. You go to Ole Miss, they were 1-15 in conference when he took over. He wins three conference games his first year, gets to a 10-win season. Ole Miss has only had before that, the last 10-win season was like Eli Manning, I think, and still and Lane Kiffin's got one of the other ones. So. And then you take Liberty. That's one thing people don't understand is Liberty just started playing Division I football, like just started. The Hugh Freeze's second season was first season was the second season they've been playing Division I football, and he wins 10 games and beat a lot. He had I think it was like 31-6 versus G5 teams.
That's correct.
And I think he had, multiple victories versus P5 teams. Another thing you got to think about for Hugh, I'm going to say one more thing and then whatever. Hugh has waited so patiently for this job. Now, granted, he may not have had a ton of other big time options, but think about like in 2020, he was rumored to be in the mix for the job. Said, I'd take it if it's there, I take it. It's my dream job. In February, he was essentially promised the job in February, this past February. And then whatever happened, the blow up happened. And then he accepts the job basically twice this time, where he takes it, it gets out and everybody freaks out. They say, hey, we need to step back. And he's just sitting there. You know what, guys, whatever. I'll just sit there. I'll wait, whatever. This is my dream job. I'll walk there if I have to. That to me speaks volumes. I'm proud that you want a guy that wants to be there versus a guy that just wants to use you, like we had with Lane Kiffin and everybody.
I do think it's interesting that him wanting to be here very badly was seen as a negative. Like I do think that was odd the whole time. I think we all saw that.
Anybody else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think coming off of a coach that we saw was just punching the clock and didn't really want to be here and was going through the motions. Look, we have Exhibit A and what could happen at Auburn when a coach wants to be at Auburn. It's to me, it means a lot and speaks volumes, and it matters that a coach really, really wants this job, because I think that directly influences effort, attitude, culture, belief, and how hard he's going to work. We see what happened the last 4 weeks when a coach that wanted to be here and gave a crap about Auburn, what you can accomplish instead of just biding time. So to me, that's a strong, I think, check mark for him and an asset that he has, that he wants to be here, because I think that's going to directly equate to the kind of job he does and how hard he works.
And the other part of that too is that also means that you're not worried about having to do this again in 2 or 3 years. Look at the Tiffin of Lane Kiffin and how long he's been at different jobs, and it's 2 years, 3 years, and then he's moving on. And the fact that Hugh Freeze wants to be here and has wanted to be here for years tells you that as long as he's doing well, that he will be here for a longer period of time. You can look at this as a 5 or 10 year tenure versus a 2 or 3 year like you would have had with a mercenary type like Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Guys, so Brandon Marcello is tweeting out right now. He said, I'm told Hugh Freeze is already recruiting. What a pivot.
Yeah.
What a pivot from the previous administration. He's
That's the thing.
Something the Arza wouldn't go do.
People are going to be shocked, I think, at the amount of connections, effort in recruiting and transfer portal. When you get something like this that you consider to be your dream job that you've wanted, and you pour yourself into it, and it's a labor of love. It sounds cliche. I know it sounds corny, but by God, we need corny after what's happened the last year. So I think that when you look, and let's not underestimate things like the NIL war chest and money men being behind him and assistant coaching pools and all those kind of things that is going to be very apparent in the next, let's say, 2 months of getting behind somebody and throwing dollars at it, how it's going to matter. Because I mean, Auburn's picked up 2 recruits in the last 3 days without a freaking coach. I mean, that blows my mind. What's going to happen now when Hugh gets on the phone and is recruiting people? He already thinks it's a wonderful job. You're not talking about someone that has to fake Auburn. It.
Oh yeah,
he loves it. It's apparent. And look, let me just say this, and then anytime you get into negotiations with a coach and the buyout language is a stickler and a sticking point, it tells me that coach is already thinking about his next job.
100%.
Hugh Freeze, I don't think even cares about that kind of language in a contract. This is a guy that could be here if successful and does what he's supposed to do and works and does, in this era of transfer portal, could be here, just like Lindsay said, for a while. It could be a long-term option that also helps us get better quicker. It's both sides of the coin, I think.
All right, so we've been booging this whole conversation. Let's address some of the negative stuff and a lot of the comments right now, which is fine, which is predictable. In fact, I put up a poll and asked, are you happy with the hire? And I'm actually surprised 52% of the people have said yes, just because a lot of the polls I've seen have been kind of slanted away from Hugh Freeze. So like that's a little interesting. But looking at a lot of this, Michael is saying compliance department's about to have to step up. Russell's, making the university cell phone joke and all of that, which Auburn knew. Auburn knew if you were going to hire this isn't going to go away if he has 1 or 2 winning seasons. Like, this is going to follow him for maybe the rest of his career, regardless of what he does. I mean, that's just part of it.
And Cam was the laptop follows Cam around. He won a Heisman, first pick overall, won a Natty, played in the Super Bowl, so 100%. So that's just always going to be part of it for Hugh Freeze. Charlie, I want to direct this question to you because it almost seems like there's plenty of Hugh Freezes out there that don't have this tied to them. What would you say to that? I would say I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I agree with that statement. I don't know that I agree that there's a lot of guys out there that have the personality that can go to Grayson High School in Atlanta and get the #1 recruit in the country with Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia doing everything they can to get him. There's not that guy out there. There's not that many guys out there. And Hugh Freeze is one of them. Okay. If you want to talk about how he did it, the only way that argument's valid, the only way the argument that he can't do that anymore because whatever the playing field's level, it was level with the guys he was going up against. Okay, if you think Hugh Freeze was the only one trying to pay Robert Nkemdiche to come to Ole Miss, you've lost your mind. Okay, there's not that many people that can go up against Nick Saban, can go up against I guess it was I don't even know if it was Kirby then.
It was Mark Richt.
Mark Richt
and
Dabo and get a guy to come to Ole Miss, regardless if his brother was there or whatever. He went in there and he beat him. And,
Jimbo was probably involved at FSU at the time too.
Jimbo, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't
They
think
used to be good, believe it or not.
Yeah, I don't think there's that many guys out there that already on the phone recruiting. Like, there's not many guys that we will get that will have such a passion for recruiting and will work as hard as recruit. Lane Kiffin was not going to recruit. Okay, go look at. Hey, everybody in the comments, go look at Lane Kiffin's recruiting class right now. Go look at where it's ranked.
Whose offensive scheme is better, Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze's? I know it's a different conversation. I'm just asking the question.
Well, I think some defensive coordinators in the second half of the season, 3 or 4 different defensive coordinators. This is going to sound like sour grapes. It's not. I'm just saying that, there's some guys that were on the defensive side of the ball, like Arnett from Mississippi State and Barry Odom, who figured out some things with Lane Kiffin and made some adjustments and shut him down a little bit. So, from a schematic standpoint, Lane Kiffin's not infallible either. Some people figured out some things to slow him down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say I've never seen Lane Kiffin take a third string quarterback and beat a team that has 10 times the talent as him. I've never seen that. I've actually never seen Lane Kiffin beat many teams over a 500 record.
Are you referring to Arkansas earlier this year,
exactly,
taking a third team?
Exactly. Taking his third string quarterback, going into Fayetteville and beating Arkansas, which you can joke about the record of Arkansas this year, whatever. That team had vastly more talent than the team that Hugh Freeze walked in there with and waxed them. So,
Lindsay,
I don't know what that means about scheme versus scheme. I've seen some things one way and haven't seen some ways things at another. I do love Lane Kiffin as a play caller, though. He does have a great offense.
And I would have loved to have him as a coach. I don't want to look like I'm being disingenuous.
Oh, totally. 100%.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. John says recruiting is overrated today. NIL is where it's at. Lindsay, you and I have talked about this before. It seems like a lot of the NIL folks, Charlie 5, you've talked about this too. The NIL folks, I think they're going to be happy with the amount of money that they receive. Let's assume this is true, which it's not. Recruiting is never overrated. You need talent, but also NIL is part of recruiting. It's like, I don't fully understand that entire point. John, if you want to elaborate a little more, I think that'd be great. But Lindsay, your thoughts on NIL over the next few weeks now that this news is out there?
There have been reports that some of the larger Auburn boosters, that this is Hugh Freeze they're a fan of his. And so there have been indications that donations from some of the larger figure donations would probably pick up under Hugh Freeze. You're already looking at a situation where On to Victory, Auburn's collective, hit their 2-year funding goal in the first, 6-8 weeks. And you're sitting on double-digit millions of dollars to go out and work on these next 2 recruiting classes. And looking at the fact that now you can take that and you can add in large dollar donations from some of those boosters that maybe weren't giving to their full capabilities under Brian Harsin, or were deliberately actually, maybe even withholding money. I don't quite know, but showing that they can now give significantly large, 6-7 figure gifts, just does nothing but make your NIL situation even better. And if anything, it's an argument for Hugh Freeze, because going off of what he did at Ole Miss, he obviously understands how to use that money to go out and get players. So
right.
It definitely means that you can do a lot of work on this roster, which is going to need a lot of work over the next 2 years because of how much talent you're losing. You have the financial resources to do it.
Yeah, right. I want to address I saw this on Twitter earlier today. Brett, miss you, buddy. Hope Orlando is fun. Brett says Malzahn, Kiffin, and Freeze almost have the identical win percentage. And this is, assuming SEC record. That's at least a stat that I saw on Twitter this morning. What are y'all's thoughts on that? More so comparing Hugh to Gus, right? Trying to dismiss that whole Hugh is Gus 2.0 narrative. Anybody want to chime in on that first? You go first, Charlie 5. Thank you for raising your hand.
Okay. Coaching, 8 wins at Ole Miss is not 8 wins at Auburn. That's not a very good comparison. You got to take everything into context. Ole Miss has had 3 10 because we were going to say 4 because we thought Lane Kiffin was going to win 10 this year. They've had 3 10-win seasons in 22 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
3. Okay. So if he wins, that's just you got to take each school and put it into context. You can't just take win
and Charlie 5, wasn't that a huge part of when we were talking pro Kiffin was if he can do this at Ole Miss, imagine what he can do at Auburn. It's the same argument.
If he can win 10 games at Ole Miss, imagine what he could do at Auburn. Exactly. Yep. It's the same exact argument that you got to use. If you want to say that, his win percentage at Arkansas State was higher than Gus's. So,
yep.
Hugh Freeze doing that at Ole Miss, to me, is more impressive than Lane Kiffin doing it at Ole Miss because theoretically, when you have a coach come in like a Hugh Freeze who can win a lot, you are raising the floor of the program. You are making the program better. You are getting more donations, getting more support. And so being the first person to do it means more than being the second person or the third person to do it. Hugh Freeze came into a school, like Charlie 5 said, that has barely had that level of success and came in and took them to 10-win seasons, beat Saban back-to-back. Whereas Gus Malzahn came to a school that he had just OC'd to a national championship, came in, put them into another national championship, and then from there never quite hit those levels of success again. But Freeze started with less and did more than arguably Gus did in a better situation.
All right, I want to get the opinion of the man who covers the Southeastern Conference better than anyone. Will chime in and be joined by Chris Gordy. What's the SEC perspective on this hire? But first things first, got to tell you about our friends at Upside. Upside is a free app that allows you to not have to cut back because inflation is hitting us where it all hurts. Of course, that is our wallet. Download the free Upside app. And then once you sign up, use promo code LOCKED, LOCKED, and you'll get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. You buy what you normally buy, gas, dine out, groceries. You take a picture of your receipt, you redeem it in the app, and you get real money cash back. Download the free Upside app. Use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back today. Let's bring in Chris Gordy. He is the host of Locked On SEC. Gordy, your thoughts? I'm sure you also, just like us, kind of heard the rumblings of Hugh Freeze to Auburn being a likely thing. You sent me a message, so I think I know where you're going to come from. But yeah, give me your thoughts on Hugh Freeze to Auburn.
Yeah, what I find interesting, guys, is I was having to go back and kind of look through the timeline because as we do all this, we get lost in the timeline of how things happened and when rumors started and all this. Hugh Freeze has been trying to come back to the SEC for some time. In 2018, Alabama was trying to hire him as their OC.
Right.
And according to all the reports, Greg Sankey kind of shut it down. Greg Sankey said it was going to be a bad look to bring him back to the conference while Ole Miss was still serving a punishment for sanctions from what happened with him. So that happened. I think they hired Josh Gaddis and Alabama went on. LSU that same offseason wanted to bring in Hugh Freeze in an on-field coaching role. A couple years later, Tennessee is in a coaching search. They were very high on Hugh Freeze then. Tennessee thought about hiring him. And again, Greg Sankey will never admit this publicly, but from what I'm told, that Greg Sankey kind of pushed that down and said, no, we're not hiring Hugh Freeze. And so Hugh Freeze has kind of had to let some time go to work his way back into the SEC, albeit he's had suitors left and right trying to get him back to the conference. So he's done a great job at Liberty. He's had great success there. But like I said, this is a guy who's been very highly sought after by many schools around the SEC, and now he's back. I got to think that Greg Sankey gave his blessing on this finally to tell Auburn. Yeah, I know he's towed the company line publicly. I think even as recent as last year, in an interview, Greg Sankey said, look, I'll let my schools hire who they want to. I don't stand in their way. Yeah, you're also the commissioner, and you can overrule things. So, ultimately, I think it's a great hire. All the baggage and stuff that comes along with it. Yeah, you're going to get killed publicly by the national folks who have a different perception of him. But at the end of the day, you're looking to hire the best football coach. Does he have to be a leader of men and recruit and do all that other stuff? Yes. But who's going to win you football games, and who's going to get this program back on track? And from that perspective, I think it's a good hire.
Daryl, you got a question for Gordy?
Yeah, I did, Gordy. I wanted, this narrative that we've heard that nobody else wanted Hugh Freeze. We heard that narrative of, then why is nobody else going after him? It reminds me of what I heard when Auburn hired Bruce Pearl. Some of these similarities are really eerily, consistent. But so what you're saying, just to clarify that, is that there would have been other schools in the last couple of years that would have been glad to hire Hugh Freeze, but it was maybe blocked or discouraged by Commissioner Sankey.
Yeah, I mean, I know the one with Alabama was true. That was, I want to say, 2018 when they were trying to hire an OC. They wanted to bring in Hugh Freeze. Like I said, LSU, I know it sniffed around on him. There was another school too. Maybe it was Ole Miss. I can't remember who it was.
Well, Auburn tried to hire him as OC before he took the Liberty job. So I don't know that necessarily that was it got blocked, but Auburn tried to hire him. Gus tried to hire him as OC before he took the Liberty job.
Yeah, and then again, Tennessee, when they were doing before they landed on Heupel, Hugh Freeze was in the discussion. So, again, I think it was an eventual thing that we knew was going to happen. Hugh Freeze was going to wind up back in the SEC at some point. Again, I think he served his crime for what happened at Ole Miss. Paying players now turns out to be not such a bad thing. NIL is the thing that everybody's taking advantage of. As for messing around with escorts while you're on the road, look, it's not a great look, but again, it is what it is. I think he served enough public punishment for that, and most people turn the page. I was trying to do some digging into the stuff that happened at Liberty. It has more to do with Ian McCaw, who is the athletic director, who came over from Baylor. They had sexual assault happening at Baylor, and then they have, I think, about a dozen or so Jane Doe cases at Liberty. Some of that stuff was happening before Hugh Freeze got there. Some of it happened when he was there. Again, that's not my job to get into all that. That's for the schools and, everyone else to do investigations into and all that kind of stuff. I got to think that Auburn at least did their due diligence here and did and questioned everybody and said, Hugh, are you guilty of anything here? I think they dug into that. But again, it's just something nationally. If you're an Auburn fan and you're a fan of the hire or whatever, you're just gonna have to deal with it because people are going to talk about it.
Going on the due diligence, I can actually speak to after news leaked late last week that Auburn was talking to Hugh Freeze about the position. Auburn reached back out to Liberty and specifically dug into some of those details of the sexual assault allegations and the investigation, got as many details as they were legally allowed to get, and kind of did an extra thorough check of that whole situation to ensure that there was not going to be anything that was directed at Hugh Freeze from that situation. And so that's part of the reason why, even though we got reports leaking out on Friday and Saturday, why we didn't actually see this announced as happening until later today, is because they had to work that process with Liberty University.
Yeah, and look, there's going to be people who aren't fans of the hire because of that, and it is what it is. But time heals all wounds. If he comes to Auburn and does a great job and starts to win and has very few issues inside of his program and he gets people to buy in, a lot of that stuff's going to just become a thing of the past. So, again, time heals all wounds there. But again, if you're an Auburn fan, whether you like the hire or not, just understand there's going to be all that kind of other side crap to come with it. But I love what Zach said about he's already hitting the recruiting trail. I mean, you got to go all in on it if you're an Auburn fan and just trust the process and trust the administration and that John Cohen did his all the legwork here. Again, talk about the timeline. It sounds like, I mean, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. Sounds like Lane was their number one. Hugh Freeze was their number two. And when things fell through with Lane, they immediately went to their number two and said Hugh Freeze. I don't feel like they were trying to hunt anybody else. I feel like that was the list.
Yeah. Can I ask this question? I want anyone to chime into this. Zach, Gordy, everybody. I'm just wondering, let's be honest. There's been a lot of things swirling around about Lane Kiffin for years, even the nickname Joey Freshwater, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm just saying there is smoke about Lane Kiffin and basically how he led his life off the field for a while either. Maybe it wasn't present in the media or publicly known, but there were rumors and things for a while. And Auburn had to vet him and do a background check, it's my understanding, on Lane Kiffin. I don't understand the pushback on Freeze other than maybe it was absolutely documented. And the same people that are coming out against Freeze didn't blink when Lane Kiffin was the number one choice, and there were some things tied to him for years.
There's definitely some double standards there. I have some theories on why. I'm not going to discuss it on here. I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. There has been sort of a double standard, and for whatever. Hey, there's you want to start digging. If we want to find reasons not to hire people, my dad always said if you go hunting for a bear, you're going to eventually find one. So I'm just saying, if you want to take a moral stand, you're going to have to take it with everybody. And I just don't think people are ready to be consistent across the board. And this is a prime example.
Gordy, thanks for stopping by, man. Real quick, you're going to be talking about this on your show. How can people find it?
Yeah, just Locked on SEC wherever you get your podcast. We'll hopefully have Zach on for a segment tomorrow and talking more on the aftermath. But good to talk with you guys. And hey, glad this resolution came so quickly because we're seeing so many kids jump into the portal right now. Luke Altmaier from Ole Miss just jumped in. I mean, this thing is going to happen so rapidly over the next 7 days. We're going to have so much movement, not just in the country. I mean, in the SEC alone, you're going to have so many kids hitting the transfer portal. You had to have that coach in place to start getting this recruiting getting this recruiting class good through the early signing period and start to get some transfers, because if Auburn's going to be competitive next year, they've got to hit up that transfer portal.
There's no question about it. And fortunately, it sounds like Freeze has already been recruiting, so he's got that mindset. Thank you so much to Chris Gordy. So I said this when we were talking about Kiffin. I also said when we were talking about Hugh Freeze. Lindsay, I may have said it in this morning show that we did together. But the biggest winner of all this, I believe, he just tweeted out to his new head coach.
Yes.
Robbie Ashford tweeting at Coach Hugh Freeze. Welcome to the Plains. Let's get to work. We've got unfinished business to handle. Eagle emoji, hashtag War Eagle. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think he is the winner in all of this. When you look at Auburn's quarterback room, I think they're in a good spot moving forward. They're probably going to bring another guy in because you got to think TJ is probably on his way out. And so you got a Robbie Ashford. You got a very talented passer in Holden Gerner. Then Zach Calzada, kind of the wild card in all this. It sounds like he wants to stay. He had every chance in the world to leave and every reason to, but it seems like he really likes Auburn, wants to play for Auburn. So, man, I love the idea of Robbie Ashford in a Hugh Freeze offense. He's not Malik Willis, but there's plenty of similarities where they are at this point in their career.
I mean, Malik Willis, when he was at Auburn, the absolute book on him was dynamic with his legs. And then I watched him not be the most accurate passer in the world, but was dynamic with his legs. So if Hugh Freeze can run some sort of offense schematically, what if Auburn goes back to an RPO type offense? To me, Robbie Ashford is absolutely a dream quarterback in an RPO scenario. I mean, if Nick Marshall could throw it in an RPO, I think Robbie Ashford has more arm talent than Nick Marshall has. So an offense designed around his skill set, which is something I think Hugh Freeze knows how to do, that could be, if he can do that with Malik Willis, I think Robbie Ashford could absolutely benefit from this hire.
Yeah. Lindsay or Charlie 5, is Robbie the biggest winner, or are there other guys on this roster that stand to benefit from this? Lindsay, you want to go first?
To me, it's Robbie. It's also Holden Gerner. Simply because you've seen, just the quarterback room in general. You've seen them be able to develop guys. He's been able to fit his offense to work with whatever type of passer he has. Now, obviously, he prefers a mobile guy like Ashford, but you can't discount what he can do for offense in general. I would also argue wide receivers. I feel like a lot of his offenses have always had a dynamic talent at wide receiver. And so first guy I think of is Cam Brown. You know, got into some games this year, had an impact, but what can he do with 2 years under a Hugh Freeze offense? Got to feel pretty good about it.
You know who Camden Brown reminds me of when you talk about Lane Kiffin wide receivers? He was a first-round pick, I believe.
Hugh Freeze,
DK Metcalf?
Laquan Treadwell?
Laquan Treadwell. Yeah.
Treadwell.
Who'd you say, Lindsay?
DK Metcalf.
Another beast.
A little bit different, but
Man. He's a little faster, but yeah, they're both big presences on the outside. Absolutely.
I think Landon King be the diamond in this whole deal.
Great.
You look at what he did with Evan Ingram, who was 6'2", 6'3", not super big, but he was an athlete that was a matchup nightmare in the slot, and he made him a first round pick. And I think Landon King, unless he's that mythical creature that only performs in practice, and unless he's that guy, but I don't think he is, because we've seen him make outrageous plays in terrible situations that he was put in. He's succeeded every time. I think he could be one of the best. He could benefit the most. I think Robbie is another great one. I did not realize. I saw a little bit of the chatter. I didn't realize that he had an AC sprain in the Missouri game, and has played through it all year. Which is your throwing shoulder. I mean, AC is not something that necessarily has to be. I don't think all the time it has to be surgically repaired, but it's something that if you don't get it attended to, if you constantly use it, it can't get better. It can't get better. And he had to continue to play, and it's a big affecting on your throwing motion and accuracy, because it hurts. It just hurts to throw the ball. So I would like to see. I hope he doesn't necessarily have to have surgery. I hope it's something that can be attended to, and he can perform, rehab it, and be ready to go in spring, because spring's going to be big with Hugh. So he could be. He's an electric open field guy. Every time he runs, I feel like he gets faster and faster. It's crazy. So if you can fix the accuracy piece and have a little bit more quick decisions and not drop back, play action, make a read and make a decision, get the ball out quick, I agree. I think Robbie could flourish.
And how big is the possibility of going to a bowl game now, where you have extra practices this early with Hugh Freeze able to be in the building, able to watch practice and evaluate guys in live action versus just watching film, if Auburn does get invited to a bowl game at 5-7.
The polarization of this hire is fascinating. I'm just watching all the live chats come in and just following all the different ways you can share your opinion on the interwebs throughout the day. And it's either this is the greatest thing ever, or this is the biggest embarrassment in the history of Auburn. There's no middle ground on this. It's like Bo Nix all over again.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the Auburn way. I mean, if we had social media back when Dye was hired, you can bet someone would say, what? Some dude from Wyoming? I don't care that he played in the SEC. He's never coached. I don't care that he coached under Bear Bryant. He's never been a head coach in the SEC. Wyoming? I remember I lived here when Terry Bowden was hired, and I had to read the paper twice to make sure that I was reading the right name. I was like, surely they spelled Tommy wrong when they said Terry. But I don't, other than maybe Gus Malzahn that everybody kind of felt was happening, and then Tuberville, Chiswick, people went to the airport and booed. I mean, Auburn always hires. There's always this polarizing, divided front. I don't know. It's hard to get a hire that everybody's on board with. It's just hard in college football. Period. I think it's difficult to do that. So you go with what you feel like is the best fit. And again, I go back to the whole. Here's the other thing that we haven't talked about. This assistant pool that's going to happen. Hugh Freeze strikes me as a guy that Auburn will go out and try to get the best defensive coordinator they can get, and Hugh Freeze is going to leave him the heck alone. Do your thing. Do your thing. You want a salty defense? Let's get a salty defense. I'm going to leave you alone and let you do your thing. I mean, that war chest open. Yes, that exactly. You're the head coach. That war chest open it up to go get maybe a name that can do some things from a defensive standpoint as well, and he's not going to meddle, is going to be big too, I think.
Here's another thing to think about.
Sure.
He's probably – so Lane Kiffin was going to cost you $11 million, and let's just be honest, that's going to eat up a lot of the coaching salary pool. I mean, the coaching salary pool is just going to be limited because that salary is huge. Hugh Freeze will not command $11 million. Hugh Freeze may not command over $6 million. So you take the difference there and you start hammering out guys, go pay. You could go make a defensive coordinator the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country. You can go pay at top dollar for high caliber recruiters. You have a whole lot more flexibility to go out and build a staff. You get to pay Cadillac what he's worth. How about that? You get to pay. You get to give him a bump and keep him happy and keep him here forever. There's a lot of positives that they're going to come out of this. I really believe for the staff purposes.
We got a comment from Julia that says Caddy would have done it for free. How does that play into your statement?
No, nobody does anything for free.
But talking about salaries, news is coming out like as we're talking right now. Matt Rule's salary at Nebraska, 8 years, $74 million. So $9.25 million for Matt Rule with a $7 million assistant coaching pool. So he's top 10 compensation for Matt Rule at Nebraska. That was the pool that you were going to be in with any other hire but Hugh Freeze. To make Charlie's point even more emphatic, is that is where the market is for a head coach at a Power 5 program that wants to try to contend for the conference and make the playoff. And like I said, I would expect maybe 7.5 at the most, simply because of what you were already paying Brian Harsin. But I think $6 million is more likely. I'm being told the buyout at Liberty is like $3 million.
It is. So, yeah. Chris Lowe confirmed that Auburn will pay $3 million for the buyout.
That's also big. When you couple it with
it's
everything
not.
else.
It's small.
I mean, it's big.
Yeah,
it's big from the aspect of it's big that you don't have to pay $30 million to get a coach. So that's what I meant. Sorry.
Right. All right. So I want to go around and see who all thinks the coaches that will be currently retained. Let's talk on-field coaches, because a lot of people are in the chat are asking about Trevon Reed. He is not an on-field coach. I think Trevon, I don't know why anybody would ask him to go away, because he's involved in recruiting. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think Trevon will stay. But of all the current assistants, who all do you think will stay? I think we're looking at 2 guys.
Me too.
We're looking at 2 guys.
Zach and Caddy.
Yeah. Does anybody else think somebody else will stay?
The only maybe I feel like someone said there was a connection with the linebacker coach. I'm drawing
Christian Robinson.
Yeah, there was somebody that said there's a connection there.
I saw that too
between he and Freeze. I think you're for sure getting Caddy and you're for sure getting Zach. And then if they keep Christian Robinson, we'll see.
What about a Kendall Simmons? I'm seeing his name a little bit.
You got to keep him on staff, I think, in some form or fashion.
As an on-field guy or an analyst?
Probably an analyst role.
Okay.
But you got to keep him on staff. He did a great job filling in.
Seeing a few Ike Hilliards, I threw that name out there to somebody this morning, and they said, and maybe not, because they want a big name wide receivers coach, is what I was told. I love what Ike Hilliard has done, but that's the only reason I didn't say his name, guys.
I think Will Friend got unfairly connected to and tagged to Harsin's offensive line inadequacy. We know that stories came out that Will Friend wanted to offer certain offensive linemen that really would be probably starting for Auburn right now, and Harsin vetoed that. So I don't know. That's one that I wonder, out from underneath the shadow of Harsin, if he was able to recruit and get the guys he wanted to recruit without getting overruled, how effective he could be in that scenario.
Either way, he's definitely built himself some stock up while he's been calling plays and helping do game plans. He's been in his bag the last 4 weeks. The offensive performance has improved significantly. And either way, if he's not retained, which I agree with you, I think there's definitely a case to keep him. He will have plenty of job options when he re-enters the coaching carousel because of the job he did these last 4 weeks once Brian Harsin was gone.
I want to pump everybody's brakes on one thing really quick, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay.
So I see a lot in the comments, and this is complete dumb luck, okay? This is complete dumb luck. I had someone call me that was actually going to buy something from the company that I sell with a Mississippi number not long ago. And we talked about the product, whatever, and he goes, y'all aren't going to take our coach, are you? Anyway, he was talking about Lane. He's an Ole Miss fan. It turns out he's Matt Luke's brother-in-law. Okay, Matt Luke is obviously the number one. I swear to God, it's the dumbest luck ever. And I was
the things that happen to you in your life.
I know,
fascinating.
I swear this is a true story. And I'm going to go back through my phone and find this guy and call him and find out. But he said, I really don't think if you get Hugh Freeze, I really don't think Matt Luke is going to ever coach again. He's got an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old son, and he missed a ton, and he's loving going to baseball games, stuff like that, and he's made a ton of money. So I'm not sure that Matt Luke, but here's another thing. It's easy for Matt Luke to say, I'm not going to coach again until another million plus is thrown at you under your buddy Hugh Freeze.
Throw 1.1 his way. Make him say no to 1.1.
To come back. No, I'll say this. I definitely don't think that phone call is not going to be made. I definitely think that phone call will be made.
Interesting.
But I'm not 100% sure that Matt Luke is going to be on the table. So I wanted to get that out there.
So I got a call from a player like right after this news broke. And I'm like, all right, what you think? And they're like, I guess we kind of saw it coming. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. I'm like, you happy with it? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'm happy with it. And then he just let me know that there's a team meeting at 5 today.
Yeah, they said that Hugh he's in Auburn. Like he was in Auburn today. There's several reports that say he's here already.
Wait, so we were following a plane for nothing?
I think we were following a plane.
I told y'all that.
That was a diversion.
That was ridiculous.
That was a sneaky diversion right there.
A plane was going to Washington, D.C. Chris Roberts was going to a conference. But we didn't know that when it took off, and we're all like, it's flying to Virginia. It's flying to Virginia.
Yeah, what about the plane that did a psych to everybody and flew over Lynchburg and then circled like,
smoke
full
screen.
of you. I mean, smoke screen. It's just
some Auburn pilot's just trolling everybody.
Yeah, he is
Nick
trolling
Brahms. Nick Brahms is having fun with it.
No, he would hurt his knee getting in the cockpit. But anyway, I'm just teasing.
Oh, boo.
He's literally keeping everything he had.
I'm just teasing. It's a joke. But that is amazing. I mean, they learned their lesson. I mean, you're not going to be able to track jets after Jetgate as easily. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you're not, especially after the Gene Chizik airport scene. Hughes could have been even much more entertaining. So I think that it was a good move to sneak him in to Auburn and under the darkness of night and have him here. If that's true, which I assume if they're having a team meeting, it is true.
Seeing a few people ask about Muschamp. I think he was in the top 3 or 4 coaches that the big money wanted. We'll see if he wants to be a DC. I don't think he's going to leave his situation for Georgia to be a defensive coordinator here, but we'll see.
I wouldn't expect that.
No, be great, but I'm just not expecting that. I'm not expecting that. All right. If you have questions, flood them in the live chat. We'd love to talk about things you want to talk about. Tiff wants to throw $2 million a year at Muschamp. I do too, buddy, but I just don't think it's going to happen. But I'm all for it. I'm all for it if you want to do it. Absolutely.
Hell, make it 3.
I understand, it's not entirely money. Is part of the reason why we've been told no before. So
with Muschamp,
it's part of it is it's not necessarily just money. There's other things in play as well. He's making $800,000 right now at UGA, for the record.
Making how much?
$800,000 in 2022.
We could double that. Double it. Do it, Hugh.
That'd be wild. All right. Grady is asking, could T-Will be back? Travis Williams is the DC at UCF, former Auburn linebackers coach. I would love that. I don't know if he's quite ready for that now in this situation. I think if it was a more balanced head coach, it's a little bit different of a conversation, but we're kind of thinking whoever the DC is going to be the head coach of the defense. I don't know if the fit is right in that situation. I think that would have made more sense like under a Brian Harsin head coach versus a Hugh Freeze. What are y'all's thoughts on T-Will?
I agree. I mean, you would take T-Will all day over a Schmedding. I mean, obviously. And so under the Brian Harsin scenario, but I think with Hugh Freeze being known for such a savant on the offensive side of the ball, that's exactly what you want. You want a counterpoint guy that is, like you guys said, the head coach of the defense, established, pay a lot of money, well-known guy, a guy that's earned his chaps, so to speak, because that combination together, if you're saving money on the head coaching pool, then by God, you better use it and go get big-time assistants that maybe have head coaching experience or being considered for head coaching, that kind of thing, because you've got the money now to do that.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in this thing. I know Kirby's a defensive coach, so you got to take a little bit away from that with this because Hugh's obviously offense, but Georgia's been running this like associate defensive coordinator deal that has been very interesting. Essentially having 2 assistant defensive coordinators. If you're going to bring T-Will, do you have a T-Will Travaris Robinson combo? Could 2 be 1? And you got the money to do it. I don't know. That's an interesting dynamic they have. I'm with you guys. I feel like you're going to have to pay up and get a seasoned head coach over there, just because of how heavy Hugh is on offense.
Yeah, and something like that also means you're probably looking at Hugh's going to have to, in essence, work as the QB coach himself because you have a limited number of on-field coaching spots. So that's the other consideration, something like that there.
Yeah. All right. More and more people asking, who do we think the DC could be? And so, I mean, it's got to be somebody that I think can handle all of their responsibilities. And something that we saw with this hire, they wanted somebody who was a sitting current head coach. I bet it's a sitting current DC that is going to be hired. So that eliminates some names that we've been throwing out.
He's a little bit younger, but Ron Roberts at Baylor used to work. He's been under Dave Aranda for a while. Dave Aranda's a defensive head coach, and so I think he doesn't quite get the credit he deserves. Could be a Kirby Smart at Alabama situation, but Ron Roberts at Baylor feels to me strong recruiter, has ties to Texas and the Midwest, would help you recruiting that area.
I'll tell you what I would do, and I know right now there's somebody sitting on Texas's staff that's not the official defensive coordinator. He's an analyst, and he threw one heck of a game plan up at Alabama and Bryce Young in week 2. I'd ask what it would take to get Gary Patterson.
Interesting. That would be a good
because he's been a head coach and he's just a defensive analyst on Texas's staff, right? I mean, he's not even the defensive coordinator. But there's a guy that I would be willing to throw 1.5 at $2 million and say, you want to talk about a guy that could be a defensive coordinator, head coach, the head coach of the defense. You leave him alone. You let him do his thing. I mean, he can scheme. He's a good recruiter. He can game plan. He coached, as we all know, head coach at TCU, and he's not even in a coordinator role right now.
$150,000 right now.
I throw the bank at him. Your bank, Lindsay. I'd back you up. I'd just say, back up the truck, Lindsay. Let's go.
If it were me, there's been a lot of talk that Mike Leach could retire after this season from health reasons, whatever. Just time he may retire. I'm a very big fan of Zach Arnett. He looks like a defensive coordinator. He's young. He's fiery. He
was a linebacker.
Yeah, he looks like a defensive coordinator. He makes, I think, 1.1 at Mississippi State. He could possibly be in the running to be their head coach. Maybe he could interview, but if not,
he's been impressive.
He's been very impressive. He's put together a salty defense without a lot of just outstanding talent. He made Nathaniel Watson from Alabama, small 1A school in Alabama, made him what I think probably an NFL player. Who was an Auburn legacy, by the way. Kind of hurts, but anyway,
sure.
I think Zach Arnett would be my number one. That would be if it were me, Mississippi ties, I'd go hard after Zach Arnett.
He's making $1.2 million right now, and he has 2.7 left on his deal after this season. He just signed a 3-year extension.
Yeah. Yep. Cohen, you did that. Go bring him here. Come on, John.
That's another good point. Is some of the smoke we heard about Brian Johnson was because he had been at Mississippi State the same time that John Cohen was there, and they had familiarity. He's familiar with Zach Arnett. He's the one that gave him that contract over the summer. So very good point.
Seeing a shocking amount of Kevin Steele. I don't think that's happening.
I think that ship has sailed.
I do too. Let's not. I mean, I just think that is a time and an era. He did some great things for Auburn. I appreciate his service defensively, but the whole thing on the way he went out the door and the stop steal, I don't want all that getting rehashed.
Daryl, do you know who started the stop steal? Do you know who started that?
Probably Charlie 5.
I take it.
It's amazing. I was in Denver, Colorado on a father-daughter trip when I first saw the hashtag stop steal. And here I am to the right of him right now in the Brady Bunch setup that we have going on right now with the man that started it.
Wish I could take that one back.
Yeah.
I wish I could have that one back.
I'm seeing a lot of Pruitt in the comments. Pruitt, I believe, is going to be going to Alabama. I don't expect Pete Golding to be there much longer. I expect he'll be at Alabama. Somebody threw out Brent Venables, which last I checked, he's a head coach. Might not work like that.
And he kind of said some bad stuff about us. So
I would.
Yeah.
He burned a bridge.
He did sound interested, though. He's just like, somebody offered me the job that I don't think they could offer me the job.
They have the authority to do it.
Kind of weirded me out.
Yeah, and then I'm seeing Gene Chizik as well. I still think Arnett's a great idea. I like the Patterson idea as well, or go in Baylor. I like any of those ideas. But I think the consensus here from all of us is find a sitting defensive coordinator who has either been a head coach or has been a defensive coordinator for a long time, and just let them be head coach of the defense is the best way to handle this.
Yeah,
Charles Kelly's name is going to be in this. Like, just get ready.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be in the mix.
If I had to pick right now, like, all right, you got to predict who Auburn's next DC is, I would say Charles Kelly.
And I don't have a problem with that either. I mean,
before you just like throw up on yourself thinking about that hire, go search Charles Kelly 247 and look at his all-time recruits page. He may not look like he has much personality, but clearly he's a dog on the recruiting
people
trail.
Must like him, or he's a really good bag man or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. He's doing something,
and he's a veteran. He's 53. He's been around a while. He's been defensive coordinators and I'm just saying that name is probably going to be in the mix, and he could be a good hire.
$850,000.
There you go.
That's the salary.
We could beat that. We could totally beat that.
We could double that. Double it.
I love that we're just going to spend other people's money.
The 53-year-old being a veteran stung a little bit. I ain't gonna lie to you, but we'll move past that.
He's been
sorry, Daryl.
He's been a coach.
He's 55 for the record.
He's 55. See,
that's the difference, Daryl.
So much younger than him.
He was in college 86 through 89. Where did he play?
He was at Auburn.
He was at Auburn.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Come on home. All right, let's discuss what this looks like in regards to the transfer portal. I still think we're going to see a lot of kids enter the portal. It may start in the next few days. It may start on the 5th. I'm not sure if it's been 30 days since Harson's been gone. It feels longer than that, but I'm not sure. But regardless, I think over the next few weeks, we're going to see guys enter the portal, but you're going to see that everywhere. And so I want everyone to be patient and calm, which isn't going to happen, and that's fine. I'll probably overreact all of it too. But I want you to compare Auburn's numbers compared to the rest of college football, because it's going to happen everywhere. I think the 19 that Auburn had last year, I think it may look similar to that, but I think more people are going to have 19 guys leave as well. And so that's kind of what I'm predicting, guys. Auburn also has less roster that could leave because it seems like the whole team's about to just like either run out of eligibility or declare for the draft. What are y'all's thoughts on how Auburn kids are going to respond to the portal?
I'm taking the under on 19.
What if I said 14? Let's say 13 and a half.
Well, I'm going to go around 12, but I'm going to say it's going to be for different reasons, and I think the reasons matter. I think that people left last year because they hated their head coach and wanted to get out of that culture. I think this will be based solely upon playing time. And you can't fault a kid. It doesn't say anything about your culture, or it doesn't mean like your program's in trouble because kids want to leave because of playing time. But when they're leaving because they hate who their coach is and the environment and the culture, that's when you have issues. So I'm going to say around 12. And I'm going to say a majority of that's going to be because they don't think they're getting an opportunity to play, and it's going to be a playing time issue.
If you watch it, I feel like every player should feel like they have a chance to play.
And I've heard I heard players love him. I heard too many things I've read over and over about how players connect to him, and he's a player's coach, and players love playing for him.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's important. I mean, I know that it sounds just repetitious, but when you come out of the valley of that being the opposite, it matters.
Zach has his hand up.
So just got a note right now. There is a scouting department meeting with Hugh Freeze. So I mean, he is hit the ground running. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Scouting is portal. That's what that is.
That's exactly what that is.
We're getting ready. We're getting ready to absolutely, I called it, pillage the portal. That's what we're getting ready to do.
So you guys think right now in the scouting department, the first thing he's doing, we know he's evaluating the roster. He's doing a roster evaluation of what Auburn's needing and what they're lacking. And then that's going to equate to, let's go get whoever we need to get to fill this void. And
apparently
I think
he did that rather than game plan last week.
And he probably did that, 2 weeks ago. And I think the offensive and defense
now. Makes total sense.
But so did seven other coaches. So did 7 other coaches that got their eyes beat out Saturday that were named for other jobs, but are in the running. And I think the offensive and defensive lines is probably, don't you guys agree, where he's going to go first?
Yes, fill it up.
You got to think. So I always am fascinated, like when somebody's elected president or some high level of office, like they've got to sit down and tell you all the secrets, right? Like they've got to tell you, all right, There are aliens. Or okay, yep. Here are some UFOs that we know of, or some crap like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is sitting down right now, and he's like, "Y'all don't know what offensive tackles are."
Y'all do realize you can get them out of high school, right?
Yeah,
You're
it's
allowed
like-
to sign them out of high school.
You don't have to go to Germany to get them. I mean, you can get them right here in the good old USA.
And
Yeah,
then
it's like,
you can
y'all are
coach
in
them,
Alabama. Like, there's a ton of tackles. Like, what's going on here?
and then you can actually coach them up to be drafted in the first round, like I've done.
Wow, what a novel idea!
Yeah.
So just throw that out there too.
Y'all do know they're allowed to block, right? Like they are allowed.
They're allowed to move people off the ball.
They're allowed to touch people. Yeah. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah. So a few people asking what the first position is. You got to think offensive tackle specifically.
Mhm.
I think defensive line is going to be a big deal just because you're losing like your whole defensive front, right?
You're losing
Like
all
you
your
got to
pass
assume.
rushers.
Yeah, you got to assume Derek
yeah.
Hall and Colby are gone.
Leota's gone.
Jason's coming back. Marcus Harris is probably coming back. You lose Morris Joseph, who was a depth piece late in the year.
Is Bragg back?
Bragg
I
is
don't
not
think so.
back.
He can't.
No, he was a grad transfer. This is his
35.
last
He's gotta
year.
go.
Yeah,
He's gotta
yeah,
go.
he's-
35.
yeah,
He's
that's right.
35. That's the opposite of 53. I just noticed how you flip those numbers around.
Nice.
You're
nice.
right. Defensive
You're really
line.
thinking about that.
And I don't think, and you're not going to, and this is where people have to be realistic. No matter how many 4 stars or 5 stars he could sign in a recruiting class along the defensive front, it's hard to get somebody to come in, be ready to play, and make an impact from a pass rushing standpoint, edge or otherwise. So he's going to have to get people in the portal.
Yeah.
100%.
And then, like, I guess there was a little bit of hope that Owen would come back, but he accepted a Senior Bowl invite. So it's like, you got to get linebackers. Offense, everywhere else, I think you get a quarterback, but everywhere else, I think you feel good about. Like, I don't think you need
the running back room's sweet. I mean,
totally. And maybe you get another running back. Maybe you get a 4th or 5th running back, but like, I don't know if that's really needed.
If Jeremiah,
okay,
I think Jeremiah Cobb with Cadillac staying, he keeps his commitment and honors his commitment. And I think with him and Alston and Jarquez, maybe you get one more, a change of pace back maybe. But I think those 3 are going to make the running back room look really nice.
Darryl, let's play this just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Is this as enticing of a hire offensively where Tank thinks about staying? Is there any chance?
How big's an IL again?
That's a great.
I know that was semi a joke, but like I think it's a factor here.
Where do you
huge
think
factor.
though? I think it is, and I think it all. This not to take the easy way out to the question, but he'll get what he'll seek advice on where he'll go from an evaluation standpoint. And unfortunately for Tank Bigsby, I don't think he ever was able to show truly what the running back he could become or could have been because of the offensive line he was running behind. So let's say Tank Bigsby projects as a 4th round pick. Because running backs, we know, don't go in the 1st round anyway. And so it's just kind of is a domino effect, right? So let's say he's a 4th or 5th round projected pick. Why not come back another year and maybe move up 2 or 3 rounds? Who knows?
Make $500,000 and then go, and then
Yeah,
go
that's where
take it
NIL changes the game, because 4 years ago, people made that decision based upon, well, a 4th round draft pick still gets paid money that I'm not getting now to help my family. Well, now you ain't got to worry about that. You can still get paid and then just, basically cushion your draft status.
Is Tank worth $1 million for him to stay another year?
I think with the room you have behind him, I
No.
don't think that's the amount that you end up getting to. I can see in certain situations on certain teams, they go that far for somebody. But Auburn, I don't necessarily think does that. But
they would need to get him They would need to get him with a brand,
Like
which
Beats,
he, like he very well
already.
Like he very well could.
I think Jarquez Hunter made Tank Bigsby not $1 million guy for NIL. Let's put it that way, with the way he's run the football the last 4 weeks.
I think that's well said, Daryl.
Yeah.
I think that's well said.
But to Daryl's point, like the draft calculus is different now. Look at him like a Peyton Barber, where he declares for the draft because his family needs the financial money, doesn't get drafted in as an undrafted free agent for the Buccaneers. Like that doesn't happen now because you can just stay and get NIL money if you're the number 1 running back, but you're not a higher in the draft guy. So calculus is different. I still don't necessarily think we get Tank back for another year unless he just decides he wants to get his degree and that he loves Auburn this much.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, is there anybody else on offense that could stay? that's not.
You do
And
lose a lot of starting experience from a receiving standpoint out of your tight end room with John Samuel Schenker being 37 years old and going on.
Sure.
And so there is a conversation about if there's a game-breaking tight end who would clearly be your number one, do you bring him in or do you roll with the juniors in a deal and a Fromm and a Frazier?
Well, the Riley Ducker, what is it? Riley Tucker or Riley Ducker? I get confused.
Micah Riley Ducker. Yep.
Yeah, with the hyphenated names, and King being what I consider to be like Charlie Five talked about, that hybrid on the hash tight end, like they used Evan Ingram. I think you're set there. I think you've got two dudes that can stretch the field and can really, help in the seams where we never saw the ball get thrown and that kind of thing. I think those two dudes can really help, especially with King coming out of the portal.
Yeah, and other guys that are out of eligibility are who? Shedrick Jackson, and then
see, I wouldn't be surprised to see
if Shedrick Jackson came back. Yeah, I'm sure he would if he could.
Contract.
Yeah, no, I think he's go. I think you're going to go ahead. What now?
We got contract news.
Yeah. 6 years, $6.5 million per year. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said.
Wow, love it.
That's a bargain.
6 years, $6.5 million per year.
Yep.
Who reported that, Lindsay?
Pete Thamel.
Okay.
Oh,
I feel good about it. Yeah, I feel good about it.
Of course.
I wouldn't have shared it if it wasn't something like that.
Pete has W-2s already, so or
he does.
Or whatever they have.
What I was going to say is, could you guys see a scenario though where Hugh Freeze looks at this receiver room and says, "Hey, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of great athletic bodies. There's a lot of guys that are going to be stars, but I need to go get one right now that is a star, and go get a receiver in the portal that could be wide receiver one immediately."
I mean, we've said that for since the portal became a thing, and it just hasn't happened. So it's like, is he going to be able to be different than what Harsin was? All right, because the whole thing was like evaluation. Okay, now we're ready to go after some dude, and then it's like we're not even in their top 5 when they cut it down to 5. We saw that with linemen, we saw it with receivers, and I mean, if he's handling recruiting any way he's handling his first 3 hours on the job, I feel so much better about how next month can go. Sweet.
You froze up for a second.
You did.
Cool. No, if he handles the next month and like the portal process any way similar to how he handled the first 3 hours of him on the job, I feel really good about the situation.
It won't be because I don't think that's my job description. It won't be because I think I hired somebody that's supposed to take that. It won't be because I didn't go see high school coaches. It won't be because I didn't call kids or try to reach out. It won't be because of any of that. I guarantee you that if there's anything that it will not be anything that will be effort related if that happens.
What you got to like.
Yeah.
Go swing it. Start swinging, man. Go swinging. Let's get after it. I'm so fired up. We got a coach who knows where Phoenix City is, Columbus, Georgia. Let's go. Let's go after it. And on to victory is fired up more than anybody right now.
All right. I think this is interesting. Chris Davis, I assume it's a different Chris Davis than the Kick Six, says Florida was saying the same thing about how Napier was getting right on recruiting early. That worked out well for them. Yeah, Florida has Florida has an incredible recruiting class right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I don't know what that means, Chris Davis.
Yeah. So explain what you mean by that.
Are you saying that the way there's a record turned out this year being subpar?
I
think that's what he's connecting the two, but I don't think those things.
Yeah,
are
last
related.
year's recruiting class has should have a huge impact on this year's roster. Chris Davis, great point.
Yep.
Sorry. Great point.
17 overall class in 2022.
Yeah, I think that that remains
23.
Well, I mean, again, we heard the greatest thing since sliced bread was Texas A&M's recruiting class. Same scenario. I mean, it takes a year or two to allow that recruiting class to bud a little bit. They had the best recruiting class and won 4 or 5 games. So Texas A&M did. That's Exhibit A. That's why it's got to be a mesh of the portal and a recruiting class.
Yes.
You can get better quicker and get to 8 or 9 wins or whatever if you get the right guys in the portal. I believe that in this day and age.
Oh my gosh, I had a comment and I lost it. I wanted to boog.
Oh,
we were ready to boog.
I'm ready to boog.
Oh my gosh, I lost.
Chris Davis
it.
is not booging right now.
Mm-mm.
Has
While
he said
we're
anything
doing
else?
that, question about defensive coordinators Barry Odom of
got it.
Arkansas. What would your thoughts be on that?
I don't.
Well,
like
if
it,
we
no.
could poach him, I mean, he'd be like down the list
Give
of the
him
guys
$4
we
million.
mentioned. Yeah, he'd be down the list of the guys we can mention. But I'd rather somebody like him than a guy that's
Why would you want any
auditioning.
part of what Arkansas's defense has been this year? It's awful.
Good point.
Hey,
It's awful.
real quick.
And he's
this
making
is-
Hold on.
$1.85 million.
Can we
so-
bug just real
Yeah,
quick?
Boog. I want to Boog, and then I got some.
All right. Rate this comment on a scale of 1 to 10. Our boy Doyle, Calzada, he's a sleeper for Heisman next year.
I've heard he's focused on having fun.
Wow,
Doyle.
Let's
Doyle.
book Doyle. I love
Let me
it.
give me some of that, whatever you got, Doyle.
Let's
I want
go.
it. Let's go.
Wow.
Doyle from the top rope. I love it.
No, I mean, maybe he did not. Zach has not. He's always said he wanted to hang out and essentially see who the next coach was going to be. So he had his shoulder cut open to be able to do that. So maybe that would be could be a good competition.
Doyle, thank you. Thank you for booking.
Thank you, Doyle.
Love it.
Oh, Doyle rules. That's a topic.
Yeah, I think so. We're Doyle dudes. Can we say that?
It's a Billy Madison reference. If nobody's seen that movie,
Dudes for Doyle.
I have.
Charlie, if you're about to say something, but we booked first. So.
Yeah. So I looked it up the other day. The salary pool for Alabama is $7.8 million. So with Hugh having a $6.5 million contract or 6.6, whatever it was, and we were willing to go 5 to 7 million with Lane, that would put you at 16, 17 million dollars in total coaches' salaries. Now you essentially have 10. If you were willing to pay that, you got $10 million of wiggle room. They're not going to spend all that, but you can at least justify matching money wise with a staff one of the best staffs in the country. So that should excite you, and that should be the standard. I would feel like that's what we should go after, and we have the money earmarked for it already. Go do it.
I agree. I think the payoff is you either get really, really salary heavy on the head coach you get, and that leaves you with less, going out and getting bona fide big top name assistants. But when we just heard the terms of the contract, $6.5 million over 6 years, I think that contract to me screams really, really nice salary pool as far as coaches are concerned. And I think that's going to line up really nice for what Auburn's want to try to accomplish in recruiting, transfer pool, everything.
All right. I've kept you all for like an hour. So I want to each person share one word about their thoughts, how they would describe this hire. Charlie 5, you go first. Try to keep it PG.
So I will not describe. Never mind. I'm not going to go.
Thank you.
No, I'm very excited. I'm very anxious to see how this the coaching staff fills out. My boxes that I like to be checked for a coach. I love an offensive head coach because you're always going to have an identity on offense, which is great. You don't have to relearn a new system every few years. And then recruiting, man. I've always been a huge recruiting guy.
One word, Charlie 5.
Yeah,
Is it only one word?
That was a very long one word.
I missed the one word part. Okay, elated. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
My bad.
Daryl?
I'm going to just say hope. We've talked about that from the time that Cadillac was hired, that this Auburn family just wanted to see improvement and wanted to see progression and wanted to see maybe some things in the future. So hope for me.
Lindsey Crosby?
Enthused. Like I'm happy that it's somebody who legitimately wants to be here. They're not here because of money. He's here because he wants to be here. And that has me excited. I am enthused for his tenure because he wants to be here.
My word will be yes.
Also, he's like the third consecutive former Arkansas State head coach. Can we acknowledge that that's a little weird? It's a little bit weird.
That is really strange.
Because Gus was and Harsin was and he was
stepping
too.
stone job.
Kind of
and
weird.
we had a head coach that played at Arkansas State in Tommy Tuberville.
I don't think I knew that.
I don't know either. This is really weird.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Really weird.
That is amazing.
That's not me.
Incredible.
That's not me.
Whose is that?
That's not me. Well, actually, I'm in Forest Hills. It might be.
My word is
If anyone's watching lives there, my apologies.
That's hilarious.
My word is finally. It finally happened. He's finally here. A lot of people tied him to the job 2 years ago and said we got whatever type of administration that was. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm not as fired up as other people are about the hire, but it's finally done. Auburn people, let's get behind him and let's see what he does. Let's watch him put together a staff. Let's watch him navigate the transfer portal over the next 4 or 5 weeks throughout December until the end of the year. And let's see what happens. This is it.
Absolutely.
This is our guy. And so we've got to figure it out. And, there's a bunch of Auburn folks that are like, I'm not going to support Auburn anymore. It's like, all right, I hate to see that, but, I don't know what else you're going to do on Saturdays. So
I'll find a parking space now. Thank you.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. I got a feeling Jordan Hare Stadium is going to be filled up and be very energetic in his debut next year. So Lindsey Crosby, you can find his written work at auburndaily.com. He also hosts Locked On MLB Prospects, which isn't relevant to this conversation at all, but that's where we are. Daryl Dapprich, he does post-game shows with me for football and basketball every single game with the exception of yesterday's game this year on Locked On Auburn. And Charlie 5, he sleeps in message boards and discords and stuff, and he's fun to be around. So, guys, thank y'all so much for hanging out. Really, really appreciate it. For those who stuck around, there's 1,500 of you. That is absolutely amazing. Please like this video and this stream, and please subscribe. Would mean a ton for the channel. Charlie 5 will be with me tomorrow morning as we continue to recap this hire. This has been Locked On Auburn.